You just took control of a railroad company. Congratulations. You own a charter, a stack of survey maps, and roughly 200 miles of absolutely nothing. No track, no stations, no customers, no revenue. What you do have is permission from the state to build a railroad connecting farmland to a major city, a bunch of land grants along the proposed route, and the legal right to sell bonds to anyone gullible enough to believe you finish this thing. The year is 1871, and you are about to learn that building a railroad is not an engineering problem. It is a financial knife fight where the blade is made of compound interest, and it is already swinging. Your first real decision has nothing to do with trains. It is about dirt. 2 survey teams come back with 2 possible routes. Route A is shorter, about 170 miles, but it crosses a river valley that need a serious bridge, maybe 2, plus grading through hilly terrain that eat your budget alive. Route B swings wider, about 220 miles, but it passes through 3 existing towns and skirts flat prairie most of the way. Cheaper, per mile, more potential customers, more miles. You pick Route B not because it is smarter engineering, because those 3 towns mean 3 places where people already live, already grow wheat, already need to ship things. Every mile of track you lay through empty grassland is a mile that generates 0 revenue until somebody shows up and decides to live there. Those towns are day 1 customers. You need day unearned customers because your bonds start accruing interest the moment you sell them, and they do not care whether your track is finished. So let's talk about bonds, because bonds are the engine that builds your railroad, and also the bomb that might destroy it. You need roughly $4 million to build this thing. You do not have $4 million. Nobody building a railroad in 1871 has $4 million in cash. What you have is the ability to issue first mortgage bonds secured against the railroad itself, the land, the track, the equipment, everything. You price them at 7% annual interest, payable in gold, maturing in 20 years. A banking house in New York agrees to underwrite the issue. They take a cut. They sell the bonds to investors in Boston, Philadelphia, London. Some of these investors have never seen a railroad. They've seen a prospectus with a nice map and a promise of 7%. Here is what 7% on $4 million means in practice. You owe $280,000 a year in interest, starting now, not starting when the railroad is done, not starting when the first train runs. Now, that number sits on your desk like a loaded gun every single morning, and you haven't bought a single rail yet. The shopping list for 220 miles of railroad reads like a bulk order for a small industrial nation. You need roughly 15,000 tons of iron rail. You need over 300,000 wooden ties. You need spikes, fish plates, ballast gravel, and the labor to put it all together. You need at least 4 locomotives, probably 6 freight cars, a couple of passenger coaches, water tanks every 15 miles because steam engines drink like they're dying, turntables, sidings, telegraph wire because railroads and telegraphs travel together like a disease and its symptom. You place orders, iron rail from rolling mills in Pennsylvania, ties cut from forests in Wisconsin and floated down rivers to lumber yards, locomotives from Baldwin in Philadelphia, $18,000 each, and that is if they don't T-jack the price because they know you are desperate. Everything ships to your construction staging point by existing railroads, and those railroads charge you freight rates that feel personally vindictive. Construction starts in the spring of 1872. Your chief engineer hires a grading crew, 300 men, mostly Irish immigrants and Civil War veterans who own nothing but their backs. They sleep in tent camps that move with the railhead. They eat salt pork, beans, bread, and coffee that tastes like it was brewed in a boot. They get paid $1.50 a day, which sounds terrible until you realize you are paying $450 a day just in labor for the grading crew alone, not counting the track, laying gang, the bridge crew, the surveyors, or the foreman. The grading crew moves about a mile ahead of the track layers. Their job is to turn raw prairie into a flat, raised roadbed. They do this with shovels, picks, wheelbarrows, mule-drawn scrapers, and an amount of physical suffering that would make a modern HR department burst into flames. In good conditions, flat ground, dry weather, they can grade a mile a day. When it rains, the whole operation turns into a mud wrestling match, where nobody wins. The track laying crew follows behind, 5 men per rail, Each rail weighs about 500 pounds. They lift it off a flat car, carry it forward, drop it on the ties, spike it down. Next rail, 500 pounds, carry, drop, spike. Repeat this roughly 170 times per mile. The rhythm of it is almost mechanical, except the machine is made of human spines. 3 months in, you hit the river. The bridge is the part of Route B that was supposed to be easy. It is not easy. Your engineer spec'd a Howe truss bridge, timber and iron, about 400 feet across. The foundation work requires cofferdams, temporary wooden walls driven into the riverbed so crews can dig down to solid rock and pour stone piers. The river does not cooperate. Spring runoff floods the cofferdams twice. You lose 3 weeks and about $11,000 in damaged materials. A cofferdam worker drowns. Nobody writes a report about it. His name goes in the payroll ledger with a line through it. The bridge takes 4 months instead of 2. It costs $62,000 instead of $38,000. You are now almost 25% over your original construction budget, and you are not even halfway done with the track. This is the moment you discover what you actually own that is worth money, not the railroad, the land. Your charter came with land grants, alternating sections along the right-of-way, a checkerboard pattern of square mile, parcels stretching out from both sides of the track. This is not charity from the government, this is the deal. The government gives you land. You sell the land to settlers. The settlers farm the land. The farms generate grain. The grain needs to be shipped. The grain ships on your railroad, you get paid. You pay your bondholders. Everyone's happy. In theory, you set up a land department. You hire an agent. You print pamphlets. Beautiful pamphlets. Color illustrations of golden wheat fields, fat cattle, white farmhouses, and children who look suspiciously clean for people living on raw prairie. These pamphlets go to immigration offices in New York, to steamship companies in Hamburg and Liverpool, to Norwegian newspapers in Minnesota. The message is simple. Come to the railroad, buy land. $5 an acre, easy terms, 10 years to pay. The railroad will take your crops to market. The railroad will bring you tools and supplies. The railroad is your future. Some of this is true. Some of it is a confidence game played with geography. You're selling land that has no houses, no wells, no fences, no roads, and in some cases no trees for 50 miles. You're selling the idea that a town will exist next year, in a place where right now there is nothing but grass and wind. And the insane part is, it works, people come. Not enough, but they come. A Swedish family buys a quarter section near one of the existing towns. A land speculator from Chicago buys 4 full sections, planning to subdivide and resell at a markup. A group of Mennonites from southern Russia inquires about purchasing an entire township for their community. You sell 28,000 acres in the first year. Average price $4.60 an acre. Total land revenue about $129,000. That sounds decent until you remember your annual bond interest is $280,000. Land sales cover less than half your debt service. The rest has to come from operating the railroad. Except the railroad isn't finished yet. By late 1872, UV got about 140 miles of track operational. You are running 2 trains a day, one mixed freight and passenger, one dedicated freight. Your passenger revenue is pitiful. Nobody rides a train to the middle of nowhere for fun. Your freight revenue is better, but seasonal. Wheat harvest runs from July to October. During those months, every grain elevator along your line is stuffed full, and your freight cars can move fast enough. The other 8 months of the year, those same cars sit in sidings, collecting rust and costing you money in maintenance and depreciation. Your operating ratio. Operating expenses divided by operating revenue is running at about 85%. That means for every dollar that comes in, 85 cents goes right back out to pay for coal, crew wages, locomotive repairs, station agents, and the quiet catastrophe of track maintenance. On 220 miles of track, something is always broken. A rail cracks in the cold, a tie rots, ballast washes out, a cow wanders onto the line and derails a freight car, spilling 40 tons of wheat into a ditch, and now you owe the shipper for the wheat and the farmer for the cow. 15 cents on the dollar. That is your margin before debt service. You are running a railroad that functions physically as intended, and you are barely scraping together enough to pay the people who built it. You face a choice. You can cut freight rates to attract more shippers, which means more volume but thinner margins, or you can hold rates steady and hope the population along your line grows fast enough to fill your cars at current prices. You cut rates, you have to. There is another railroad 40 miles to the north. and if their rates are lower, every bushel of wheat within hauling distance of both lines goes to them. The farmer doesn't care about your bond payments. The farmer cares about the price of moving his grain. January 1873. You need more money. The last 80 miles of track remain unfinished. Your construction fund is exhausted. You go back to your banking house in New York and propose a second bond issue. $1 million. Same terms. Secured against the unfinished portion of the line and remaining land grants. The banker looks at you across a mahogany desk. He is polite. He is wearing a very good suit. He says the market for railroad bonds is getting crowded. There are a lot of railroads selling bonds right now. A lot investors are starting to ask questions. Questions like, how many of these railroads will actually generate enough revenue to cover their interest? How many of these routes go through places where people actually live? How many of these prospectuses are? And he doesn't use this word, but you can hear it. Lies. He'll try to place the bonds. He does try. He sells about 600,000 of the million. The other 400,000 sits unsold. You take the 600,000 and push construction forward, but slower. Fewer men, cheaper materials in some sections. You are building a railroad the way a drowning man swims. Ugly, desperate. Just trying to reach something solid. September 1873, J. Cook and Company closes its doors. J. Cook, the man who financed the Civil War, the most respected name in American banking, cannot sell enough Northern Pacific Railroad bonds to cover his obligations. His firm collapses. The New York Stock Exchange shuts down for 10 days. Banks across the country freeze lending. Credit evaporates like water on a hot rail. Your second bond payment is due the 1st of October. You don't have the money. Your land sales have slowed because the settlers who are going to buy next year's parcels can't get loans either. Your freight revenue is in its seasonal peak, but it is not enough. You write letters to your bondholders asking for an extension. Some of them write back. Most don't by December. You've missed 2 interest payments. Your bondholders file suit. A federal judge appoints a receiver. A court-appointed manager who takes operational control of your railroad away from you and runs it for the benefit of the creditors. You still technically own the stock. The stock is worth approximately the paper it is printed on. Let us do the final accounting. Total construction cost for the portions completed, approximately $4.2 million. Total bond debt outstanding, $4.6 million, including accrued unpaid interest. Total land sold, about 31,000 acres, generating roughly $143,000. Total operating revenue through the end of 1873, approximately $310,000. Total operating expenses for the same period, about $263,000. Net operating income, $47,000. You built 180 miles of functioning railroad. You moved real grain for real farmers. You created 3 new towns where there was nothing before. People live there now. Kids go to school in buildings that didn't exist when you started, and you are financially destroyed. The receiver will run your railroad for the next 3 years at reduced service. He'll negotiate with bondholders to accept 40 cents on the dollar. Eventually, a larger railroad will buy the whole thing at auction for about a third of what it cost to build. The new owners will finish the last 40 miles of track. They'll profit from it. They'll profit from your land grants, your grading, your bridges, your dead cofferdam worker whose name nobody remembers. So here is the question nobody in 1871 wanted to ask out loud, and you can fight about it in the comments. Was this railroad a failure or an investment that just happened to destroy the wrong person? Because the track is still there, the towns are still there, the wheat still ships. Someone is making money on every single mile you laid. It is just not you. It was never going to be you. You were the guy who showed up with a shovel and a dream and $4 million in debt. And the Gilded Age smiled at you the way a slot machine smiles. Bright lights, big sounds, and a payout designed for